Have you ever wondered what secrets a glowing orb could unlock? Join us on a magical journey through ancient mysteries and timeless wisdom. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button and bell icon so you never miss out on more enchanting adventures. Get ready to dive into the story of Goo Goo Girl and the Orb of Infinite Tales. In the heart of a little village stood a grand library, nestled among towering oak trees. The library, with its golden spires, was said to be as old as the kingdom itself. Inside, it wasn't just the stories of kings and queens that filled the shelves. The walls were lined with books, scrolls, and ancient tomes, each one holding tales of bravery, wisdom, and adventure passed down through generations. But none of those stories felt as important as the one that had been entrusted to Goo Goo Girl, a young girl with a big heart, but a lingering sense of doubt. Goo Goo Girl had always lived in the shadow of the grand stories of her ancestors. Her grandmother, Grandma Gwendolyn, had been a legendary storyteller in their village, a woman known far and wide for her wisdom, courage, and the magical way she wove tales of heroes, mysteries, and magical realms. Grandma had told stories of their ancestors, great warriors, queens, and scholars who had shaped the kingdom and protected it from darkness. But despite all of that, Goo Goo Girl often felt as if she could never live up to the greatness of those who had come before her. It wasn't that Goo Goo Girl lacked bravery, far from it, but she always felt like she was missing something, like there was a piece of her that didn't belong in the stories she had inherited. She had always imagined that being a hero meant wearing a crown or wielding a sword, but for her, it never seemed quite that simple. One day, while rummaging through the old library with her best friend, Goo Goo Gaby, she discovered something, an orb gleaming with a golden light. It rested on a stone pedestal, surrounded by ancient scrolls and books, as if it had been waiting for her. "What is that?" Goo Goo Gaby asked, her voice full of curiosity and excitement. Goo Goo Girl stepped forward, her heart pounding. "I don't know, but I think it's important." With trembling hands, Goo Goo Girl reached out to touch the orb. The moment her fingers made contact, a warm energy spread through her, as if the orb was alive. The room around her seemed to hum with a deep resonance, and the air became thick with the whisper of voices from the past. The orb's golden light intensified, and before her, a figure began to materialize. Her grandmother, as she had been in her youth, vibrant and full of life. Grandma Gwendolyn smiled softly. "You've come to seek the wisdom of your ancestors, my dear," Grandma's voice echoed through the room. "But remember, it's not just about the past. It's about the future you will create. Your story is your own, and the choices you make will shape the world." Goo Goo Girl felt a sense of calm wash over her. The weight of her doubt, the fear of never being enough, seemed to melt away. Grandma's words echoed in her mind. Your story is your own. Goo Goo Girl realized that her life didn't need to follow the footsteps of those who had come before her. She could make her own choices, chart her own path. As the orb's glow faded, the whispers of the past grew quieter, and the vision of Grandma Gwendolyn vanished. But the message lingered in Goo Goo Girl's heart. The orb didn't just hold the stories of the past, it held the power to guide her in writing her own tale. Goo Goo Gaby stepped forward, a knowing look in her eyes. "What's happening, Goo Goo Girl? What did you see?" Goo Goo Girl blinked, still overwhelmed by the experience. "I think I've been looking at everything wrong. The orb isn't just a key to the past, it's a key to my future." Just then, the orb pulsed, and a new vision appeared, a shadow, dark and foreboding, spreading across the land. Azrael, a sorcerer with a thirst for power, had long sought the Orb of Infinite Tales. He believed that by controlling it, he could rewrite the stories of the kingdom and bend everyone to his will. Goo Goo Girl's heart raced. She had heard of Azrael in her grandmother's stories, how he had once tried to take the magic of the orb but had been defeated. Yet now, it seemed that he was rising once more. The orb's golden light flared, and Goo Goo Girl knew in that moment that it was time for her to step forward and protect her home. "We have to stop him," Goo Goo Girl said firmly. "We can't let Azrael get his hands on the orb." Goo Goo Gaby looked at her friend with wide eyes, then nodded in determination. "We'll stop him together. We'll write our own story." With the orb in hand, the two friends set off toward Darkwood Forest, where Azrael's dark magic was said to be growing stronger. The forest was known for its thick, tangled trees and the eerie silence that seemed to settle over it like a heavy fog. Goo Goo Girl felt the weight of the journey ahead of her, but she also felt a newfound strength, one that came from knowing that her story, her choices, mattered. As they entered the forest, the air grew colder, the trees casting long shadows over the path. The forest, once full of life, now felt like a place where even the wind held its breath. Every step forward felt like a step deeper into the unknown. This place gives me the creeps, Goo Goo Gaby muttered, looking around nervously. It's like we're walking into a story where nothing good happens. Goo Goo Girl smiled reassuringly. But stories change, Gaby, just like we can. The further they walked, the darker the forest seemed to get. Strange creatures with glowing eyes peered from the shadows, their movements swift and silent. At one point, a dark, twisting figure lunged from the trees, a creature of Azrael's magic, its eyes burning with an unnatural green glow. Goo Goo Girl stepped forward, holding the orb out in front of her. Its golden light flared, pushing the creature back. But more were coming, more twisted beings, each more frightening than the last. We have to keep going, Goo Goo Girl said, her voice steady even as her heart pounded in her chest. We have to stop Azrael before it's too late. The path ahead seemed endless, and the creatures grew more persistent. Each time Goo Goo Girl used the orb's light to fend them off, the power of the orb seemed to grow stronger within her. It wasn't just about magic, it was about belief. The orb was alive with the stories of her ancestors, and it was feeding her strength, teaching her the true meaning of courage. At last, they reached the heart of Darkwood, the lair of Azrael. The castle stood like a dark, twisted tower, its spires reaching into the sky like thorns. You think you can stop me? Azrael's voice rang out. The orb belongs to me. I will reshape this kingdom as I see fit. Goo Goo Girl stood tall, the orb glowing brightly in her hands. You won't rewrite our story, Azrael. The people of this kingdom have the power to choose their own path. We choose what happens next. Azrael appeared before them, his dark cloak swirling around him. His eyes burned with fury. You are nothing but a child. The orb is mine, and there is no power in this world that can stop me. But as he spoke, the orb's light grew even stronger. Goo Goo Girl felt a surge of warmth fill her heart. She was no longer afraid. The orb was not just a tool, it was a part of her, a symbol of everything she had learned. The darkness surrounding Azrael seemed to falter in the presence of the orb's light, and the very air around them seemed to pulse with energy. No, Goo Goo Girl said, her voice firm. It's not your story to tell, it's ours. With a final burst of energy, the orb unleashed a powerful wave of light, pushing back Azrael's dark magic and dissolving his form. His cry of rage echoed through the air, but as the light faded, he was gone. The castle began to crumble, the dark magic dissolving as the orb's light spread. The forest slowly began to return to life, its trees now full of vibrant green leaves, the silence lifting as birds and animals returned to their homes. Goo Goo Girl, exhausted but triumphant, turned to Goo Goo Gaby. We did it. We did, Goo Goo Gaby replied, grinning. We really did. As they made their way back to their village, the people of the kingdom greeted them with cheers and celebration. Goo Goo Girl had not only defeated Azrael, but had proven to herself that her story was hers to create. The orb, now soft in her hands, pulsed gently. The light that had once felt like a burden now felt like a guide. The stories of the past were important, but they were just that, the past. The future was hers to write, and she was ready to begin. From that day forward, Goo Goo Girl no longer worried about living up to the stories of her ancestors. She understood that she was part of an even greater story, a story that was still unfolding. And with every choice she made, she would continue to write it, one chapter at a time. As the celebration continued in the village, Goo Goo Girl couldn't help but reflect on how much had changed. She had entered the forest feeling unsure of herself, thinking that her only purpose was to follow in the footsteps of those who came before her. But now, standing among her friends and the cheering townspeople, she realized that her journey had taught her something deeper, the power of choice, and the strength that came with believing in her own story. Goo Goo Gaby danced around her, still grinning. You're a legend now, Goo Goo Girl. The kingdom's gonna talk about this for generations. Goo Goo Girl chuckled, feeling a little bashful. I didn't do it alone, Gaby. We did it together. Goo Goo Gaby stopped mid-spin and grinned even wider. You're right. It was a team effort. She placed her hands on her hips. But let's be real. You were the one with the orb, and the orb was the one with all the magic. Goo Goo Girl looked down at the orb in her hands. It had grown quieter now, the intense glow from earlier dimming into a soft, warm light. The orb had fulfilled its purpose, guiding her through the hardest part of her journey. But there was still a question she hadn't fully answered yet. What was she supposed to do with it now? Was it something to keep or something to pass on? I'm not sure what comes next for me, Goo Goo Girl said quietly, almost to herself. I thought once we stopped Azrael, everything would be different, but it feels like there's more to figure out. Goo Goo Gaby leaned in close, sensing the uncertainty in her friend's voice. You don't have to have all the answers right now, Goo Goo Girl. You've already proven that you have the strength to write your own story, whatever that looks like. The words hung in the air, comforting and true. Goo Goo Girl had always believed that to be a hero, she had to follow a specific path, one laid out by others. But now, she understood that her path was hers to create, just like the stories in the orb. Every choice she made was a new chapter in her journey, and it didn't have to be perfect or clear right away. She could take it one step at a time. As the celebration continued, an old voice interrupted her thoughts. Grandma Gwendolyn's. "You've come a long way, my dear," Grandma said, walking toward her from the crowd. Her presence was warm and comforting, like the first rays of sunlight breaking through the morning fog. The elderly woman's eyes shone with pride. "I'm so proud of you." Goo Goo Girl smiled, holding out the orb to her grandmother. "I don't think I can keep it, Grandma. It feels like it's meant to be shared, like it's bigger than just me." Grandma Gwendolyn nodded thoughtfully. "You're right, child. The orb belongs to the world, but your wisdom, the lessons you've learned, will be the gift you leave behind." Goo Goo Girl looked at the orb again, a deep sense of understanding settling in her chest. The orb had been a guide, a reminder of the strength that ran through her bloodline. But now, it was time for her to share what she had learned with others. It was no longer a tool to fix a single problem. It was a symbol of the power of stories, of heritage, and of creating one's future. "That's the true magic, isn't it?" Goo Goo Girl said softly. "The stories never end. They just keep evolving. The stories of our ancestors, of our kingdom, they belong to everyone. But the future, that's up to us. Our stories are what we make of them." Grandma Gwendolyn smiled, the lines of age around her eyes deepening with affection. "Exactly, and you, my dear, are the storyteller now. The orb has passed its wisdom to you. It's up to you to share it, and let the next generation carry it forward." With that, Goo Goo Girl turned the orb over in her hands one last time. The golden glow pulsed gently, almost as if it were offering its blessing. She felt the weight of her ancestors' love and wisdom settle into her soul, and it was then that she understood. The stories of the past were meant to light the way for the future. She could never leave them behind, but neither could she be bound by them. "We'll keep the stories alive," Goo Goo Girl said firmly, her voice full of resolve. "But we'll write our own too. We'll create new tales, full of adventure, courage and hope. And we'll share them with everyone, so that our children and their children will always know the power of their own story." Goo Goo Gaby, ever the optimist, beamed. "We'll tell stories of us, the new heroes of Storytown, ones who made a difference, ones who stood tall and brave, just like you did." The crowd cheered, their energy infectious. The kingdom was healing, not just from the defeat of Azrael, but from the realization that every person's story mattered, that everyone had a part to play in the larger tale of the world. It was not the grandest of stories that defined a person, but the small, everyday choices that made them who they were. Later that evening, Goo Goo Girl sat under the stars with Grandma Gwendolyn. The night air was cool and clear, and the first stars of the evening twinkled brightly in the sky. "You know, Grandma," Goo Goo Girl said as she stared up at the stars, "I think I finally figured it out. It's not about living up to anyone else's legacy. It's about making your own. And no matter how small or big the steps are, it all matters." Grandma Gwendolyn wrapped a comforting arm around Goo Goo Girl's shoulders. "You've learned the most important lesson of all, my dear. Your legacy isn't just written in stories. It's written in the choices you make and the way you share your heart with the world." Goo Goo Girl smiled, feeling a warmth she had never felt before. She wasn't just a part of the stories that had been passed down through the years. She was creating her own, every single day. And just as her grandmother had passed on the gift of storytelling to her, so too would she pass it on to others. The orb's glow might have dimmed, but its magic was still alive in every person who believed in the power of their own story. The days turned into weeks, and soon the kingdom flourished. The once dimmed forest began to grow lush with life, and the people of Storytown resumed their peaceful lives, telling tales by the firesides, singing songs, and passing on the wisdom of the past to the children who would one day write their own stories. And as for Goo Goo Girl, she continued to carry the lessons of her ancestors with her, knowing that the greatest legacy she could leave was not one of perfection, but one of love, courage, and the strength to believe in her own story. Each time she shared a tale, whether with friends, family, or strangers, the world grew brighter, and the stories of the kingdom flourished. The orb had taught her that the greatest magic was not found in ancient artifacts, but in the everyday choices that shaped the world. And with each story she shared, she wrote a little more of the future, a future filled with endless possibilities, just waiting to be told. Remember, The wisdom of the past can always guide us toward a brighter future. If this tale inspired you, please like, share, and stay tuned for more heartwarming stories that bring hope and magic into our lives.
Goo Goo Girlz!
In a world where magical forests hum with secrets and glowing portals lead to endless possibilities, adventure awaits around every corner. Don't forget to click the subscribe button and the bell icon so you never miss out on more enchanting journeys like this one. Let's dive into the magical tale of Goo Goo Girl and the secret of the garden gate. In the small village of Blossom's Edge, life was simple, yet full of charm. The cobblestone streets wound between colourful houses, and laughter often spilled out of windows as neighbours greeted one another. It was a close-knit community, but even in such a lively village, there was little room for the kind of grand adventure that Goo Goo Girl and Goo Goo Gaby dreamed about. The two best friends were known for their boundless curiosity and knack for exploring every nook and cranny of their world. Goo Goo Girl, with her warm smile and fluffy hair, was the daring one, always ready to jump headfirst into the unknown. Goo Goo Gaby, with her braids adorned with colourful beads, was the planner, always finding clever ways to solve problems. One sunny afternoon, as they helped Goo Goo Gaby's grandmother clean her attic, they stumbled across an old book tucked away in a dusty chest. Goo Goo Girl opened it carefully, revealing faded pages filled with delicate handwriting. It was a diary, no ordinary diary, but one that belonged to the village's founder. Goo Goo Gaby noticed something else tucked between the pages, a hand-drawn map leading to a mysterious place called the Secret Garden Gate. The girls' eyes widened with excitement. They whispered about the possibility of discovering something magical, something no one else in the village knew about. They vowed to follow the map the very next day. The morning of their adventure dawned bright and clear. Armed with the map, a bag of snacks, and Goo Goo Gaby's trusty notebook for taking notes, they set off. They followed the map's winding path through familiar meadows and bubbling creeks, and then into the woods, where the air grew cooler and the trees thicker. The deeper they ventured, the quieter it became, until the only sounds were the rustling leaves and the crunch of twigs beneath their feet. Hours passed, and just as they began to wonder if they were lost, they found it, the gate. It was magnificent, standing tall and ancient, entwined with ivy and blooming flowers that glowed faintly in the dappled sunlight. Its iron bars were shaped into intricate designs, and its surface seemed to shimmer as if it held secrets waiting to be uncovered. The girls stared at the gate in awe, and Goo Goo Gaby consulted the diary. "It says here that the gate only opens if we sing the Song of the Valley," she explained. Goo Goo Girl nodded, and together they sang the tune written in the diary. Their voices blended beautifully, and as the last note faded, the gate groaned and slowly swung open. They stepped through into another world. The garden was unlike anything they had ever seen. Flowers of every colour sparkled as if dusted with gold. Vines swayed gently though there was no breeze, and trees towered above them with leaves that seemed to hum softly. The air was rich with the scent of flowers and earth, and a stream nearby shimmered like liquid silver. The girls wandered deeper into the garden, marvelling at its beauty. They found plants that emitted light, fruits that changed colour when touched, and blossoms that sang melodies. They were enchanted, but they also felt the weight of the garden's mystery. It felt alive, as if it were watching them. In the heart of the garden stood a colossal tree with golden leaves. At its base were stone tablets engraved with riddles. Goo Goo Gaby read aloud the first riddle, and the girls worked together to solve it. Each time they answered correctly, a soft glow emanated from the tree, and a new pathway appeared. The riddles tested their intelligence and creativity, but they were determined and worked as a team, their laughter cutting through the garden's quiet. As they progressed, the challenges became harder. They had to cross a narrow bridge over a sparkling brook, where the planks disappeared behind them as they walked. They had to navigate a maze of thorny vines that shifted to block their path. Each trial demanded trust and quick thinking, and each success strengthened their bond. Finally, they reached the summit of the golden tree. There, they found two objects on pedestals. One was a golden chalice labelled Wisdom, filled with a glowing liquid that seemed to pulse with knowledge. The other was a silver mirror, inscribed with the word Truth. The girls hesitated, realizing they had to choose between the two. The chalice promised the wisdom of the ancients, knowledge that could answer any question. The mirror, however, would reveal the truth about themselves and their friendship. Goo Goo Girl looked at Goo Goo Gaby. "We came here together, and it's our friendship that brought us this far. I think the truth is more important." Goo Goo Gaby nodded, understanding. "Wisdom is tempting, but what good is it without knowing who we are?" They placed their hands on the mirror together. The chalice disappeared in a shimmer of golden dust, and the mirror glowed brightly. In its reflection, they saw scenes from their past, moments of bravery, kindness, and teamwork. They saw how every small act, every shared laugh, and every challenge they had overcome had built their unbreakable bond. Tears welled up in their eyes as they realized the depth of their friendship. The mirror faded, and the guardian spirit of the garden appeared before them. It was a glowing figure, its form shifting like leaves in the wind. "You have chosen well," the spirit said, its voice warm and kind. "True wisdom lies in knowing oneself and valuing others. As a reward, I grant you each a seed from the Everlight tree. Plant them in your world, and they will grow into something extraordinary." The spirit disappeared, and the girls carefully tucked the seeds into their bags. They made their way back down the tree and through the garden, which seemed to glow brighter as if celebrating their success. When they reached the gate, it swung shut behind them with a soft click, locking the garden away once more. Back in Blossom's Edge, the girls planted the seeds in the village green, choosing a spot where everyone could enjoy their magic. Weeks passed, and the seeds sprouted into shimmering saplings that quickly became the pride of the village. The plants radiated warmth and beauty, and the villagers, who had initially been skeptical of the girls' story, were awestruck. The girls shared their tale at community gatherings, inspiring others with their courage and the lessons they had learned. They started a community garden where families could grow flowers and vegetables together, creating a space for connection and collaboration. As the years went by, the magical trees grew tall, their golden leaves casting a warm glow over the village green. Goo Goo Girl and Goo Goo Gaby, now young women, often sat beneath the trees, reflecting on their adventure. They realized that the garden had given them more than seeds. It had taught them about the power of trust, the importance of truth, and the beauty of growing together. One evening, as they watched children play beneath the trees, Goo Goo Gaby turned to Goo Goo Girl and said, "Do you think the garden is still there, waiting for someone else to find it?" "I think it will always be there," Goo Goo Girl replied. "But the real magic isn't just in the garden, it's in what we do with what we've learned." And with that, they smiled, knowing that their adventure was only the beginning of a lifelong journey of discovery and friendship. As the seasons changed in Blossom's Edge, the magical trees became a central part of the village. Children played under their glowing leaves, couples carved their initials into the bark, and elders often sat beneath them, telling stories of their youth. The trees were a symbol of unity, and the community garden that Goo Goo Girl and Goo Goo Gaby had started flourished around them. Every corner of the garden was filled with life, from fragrant flowers to rows of vegetables that were shared among neighbours. One crisp autumn morning, Goo Goo Girl and Goo Goo Gaby decided to visit the garden early before anyone else was awake. The golden leaves of the magical trees shimmered in the early light, casting an enchanting glow over the village green. As they sat beneath the trees, they began to reminisce about their adventure. "Do you remember the thorns in the maze? I thought we'd be stuck there forever," Goo Goo Gaby said, laughing as she leaned against one of the tree trunks. "And the singing brook," Goo Goo Girl added, smiling at the memory. "I was so scared the bridge would disappear before we made it across." Their laughter faded into a comfortable silence as they watched the sunlight filter through the leaves. It had been years since their journey to the secret garden, but the lessons they had learned still shaped who they were. They had grown into leaders in their village, guiding others with the wisdom and truth they had gained. As they sat there, they noticed something strange. One of the trees had begun to glow brighter than usual, its golden leaves shimmering with a brilliance they hadn't seen before. Curious, Goo Goo Girl and Goo Goo Gaby approached the tree, their hearts pounding with excitement and a touch of nervousness. At the base of the tree, they found a small, new sprout pushing up through the soil. It was unlike anything they had seen before, its leaves a deep, iridescent blue that sparkled like stars. Goo Goo Gaby knelt down to inspect it. "Do you think it's another gift from the garden?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "Maybe," Goo Goo Girl replied, her eyes wide with wonder. "Or maybe it's a message." As they touched the sprout, a familiar warmth spread through their hands, and they heard the soft, melodic voice of the guardian spirit. "You have nurtured the seeds of the garden well," the voice said. "This sprout is a symbol of your continued growth. It will guide you to new adventures when the time is right." The girls exchanged a look, their excitement bubbling over. The idea that their adventure wasn't over filled them with both joy and curiosity. What new challenges would they face? What truths would they uncover next? For now, they decided to let the sprout grow, tending to it with the same care they had given the other trees. They didn't know when or how their next adventure would begin, but they knew they were ready for whatever lay ahead. The days turned into weeks, and the sprout grew rapidly, its blue leaves stretching toward the sky. The villagers marveled at it, wondering what new magic it might bring. Goo Goo Girl and Goo Goo Gaby often visited it, watching its progress and dreaming of the possibilities. One evening, as the sun set and the sky turned shades of orange and pink, the sprout began to shimmer with a soft light. Goo Goo Girl and Goo Goo Gaby rushed to the garden, followed by a crowd of curious villagers. The sprout's light grew brighter, and its leaves began to unfold, revealing a small, glowing orb at its center. The orb floated upward, hovering in the air before the two friends. It pulsed gently, as if alive, and then it began to drift toward the edge of the village. Goo Goo Girl and Goo Goo Gaby felt an unspoken understanding between them. This was their call to adventure. Without hesitation, they grabbed their bags, filled them with essentials, and set off after the orb. The villagers cheered them on, their trust and admiration shining in their eyes. As the orb led them beyond the familiar paths of Blossom's Edge, Goo Goo Girl and Goo Goo Gaby felt the same thrill they had experienced years ago when they first discovered the secret garden. The world was vast and full of mysteries, and they were ready to uncover them together. Their journey was far from over. The lessons of the garden had prepared them for whatever lay ahead, and they knew that as long as they had each other, there was nothing they couldn't face. The glow of the orb illuminated their path, and with every step, they felt the magic of the garden guiding them toward a future filled with wonder, discovery, and endless possibilities. As Goo Goo Girl and Goo Goo Gaby followed the glowing orb into the unknown, the familiar surroundings of Blossom's Edge gradually faded. The narrow dirt paths they once knew gave way to wide expanses of wildflower meadows and towering trees whose canopies seemed to stretch endlessly. The orb moved at an unhurried pace, as if encouraging them to take in the sights and sounds of the journey. The first night away from the village, the girls set up camp under a sky bursting with stars. Goo Goo Gaby used her notebook to sketch the glowing orb and the unusual trees around them, while Goo Goo Girl prepared a simple meal from the snacks they'd packed. They talked late into the night, sharing their hopes and fears about what awaited them. "Do you think this adventure will be like the last one?" Goo Goo Gaby asked, her voice soft as she gazed at the orb, which hovered nearby, gently pulsing like a heartbeat. "I don't know," Goo Goo Girl admitted, "but whatever it is, we'll face it together, just like before." The next morning, the orb began to move again, leading them deeper into the wilderness. As they followed it, they noticed strange markings on the trees, spirals, stars, and symbols they couldn't decipher. Goo Goo Gaby jotted them down in her notebook. "Maybe they're a language," she said, "or a message from whoever, or whatever, created this path." The markings became more frequent as they walked, and soon they found themselves at the edge of a massive canyon. The orb floated ahead, illuminating a narrow bridge made of woven vines that stretched across the chasm. Goo Goo Girl hesitated, peering over the edge at the swirling mist far below. "Do you trust me?" Goo Goo Gaby asked, holding out her hand. "Always," Goo Goo Girl replied, taking her hand. Together, they stepped onto the bridge, their hearts pounding as it swayed beneath their weight. The orb hovered just ahead, lighting their way. Halfway across, the mist below began to rise, swirling around them and whispering strange, haunting words. Goo Goo Gaby tightened her grip on Goo Goo Girl's hand. "Don't listen," she said firmly. "It's just trying to scare us." But Goo Goo Girl couldn't help but hear the whispers. They sounded like her own voice, questioning her courage, her choices, even her worth. She stumbled, her confidence wavering, but Goo Goo Gaby steadied her. "Remember what the garden taught us," Goo Goo Gaby said. "The truth about ourselves. You're brave and you're enough. Don't let the whispers make you forget that." Buoyed by her friend's words, Goo Goo Girl pushed forward, and together they made it to the other side of the canyon. As soon as they stepped off the bridge, the mist vanished, and the orb glowed brighter, as if congratulating them. The terrain beyond the canyon was unlike anything they'd seen before. The ground sparkled as though dusted with diamonds, and strange plants with glowing, translucent leaves lined the path. The orb led them to a clearing where a large stone arch stood. The arch was covered in the same symbols they'd seen on the trees, and at its center was an inscription that read, "Only those with open hearts may pass." The orb floated into the arch, but when the girls tried to follow, an invisible barrier stopped them. Goo Goo Gaby ran her fingers over the symbols on the arch, trying to make sense of them. Goo Goo Girl, meanwhile, stared at the inscription, her mind racing. "What do you think it means?" Goo Goo Gaby asked, turning to her friend. "I think it's about trust," Goo Goo Girl said slowly. "Not just trusting each other, but trusting ourselves. The garden taught us that too." They stood side by side, closed their eyes, and took deep breaths. They thought about all they had learned, the trials they had faced, the choices they had made, and the truths they had discovered about themselves and each other. When they opened their eyes and stepped forward again, the barrier was gone. Beyond the arch lay a breathtaking sight, a valley filled with cascading waterfalls, shimmering lakes, and plants that glowed in every colour of the rainbow. At the centre of the valley stood a towering crystal structure that seemed to hum with energy. The orb floated toward it, beckoning them to follow. As they approached the crystal, they saw their reflections in its many facets. But these reflections weren't ordinary. They showed them not as they were, but as they could be, confident, wise, and capable of great things. The sight filled them with a sense of awe and purpose. The crystal began to glow, and the orb settled into its centre, merging with it. A deep, resonant voice emanated from the crystal. "You have proven yourselves worthy," it said. "This place holds the knowledge and magic of generations past. It is yours to protect and nurture, just as you have nurtured the seeds of the garden." The crystal released a burst of light, and when it faded, the girls found themselves holding small, intricately carved stones. The voice continued, "These stones are keys. They will guide you back to this valley when the time is right. Until then, carry its magic with you and use it to bring light to your world." The girls thanked the crystal, their hearts full of gratitude and wonder. As they left the valley, the path behind them faded, leaving only their footprints in the sparkling ground. They knew they had been entrusted with something extraordinary, and they were determined to honour that trust. When they returned to Blossom's Edge, they shared their story with the villagers, who marvelled at the carved stones and the girls' courage. The magical trees seemed to glow brighter than ever, as if celebrating their return. Goo Goo Girl and Goo Goo Gaby spent the following years tending to the village, teaching others about the importance of trust, truth, and growth. They knew their adventure wasn't over. One day, the stones would call them back to the valley, but for now, they were content to nurture the magic they had brought home, and to inspire others to embark on adventures of their own. The legacy of their journey lived on, not just in the trees or the carved stones, but in the hearts of everyone who heard their story. And as the sun set over Blossom's Edge, casting golden light on the village green, Goo Goo Girl and Goo Goo Gaby sat beneath the magical trees, dreaming of the adventures yet to come. Remember, the greatest treasures are found when we embrace curiosity, courage, and the bonds we share with others. If this story inspired you, give it a like, share it with someone who loves a little magic, and stay tuned for more heartwarming tales.